Okay.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Good morning, everybody, and happy Valentine's Day. I'm Saeed Khan, and this is The Week That Was, our usual weekly roundup, and I don't even know what obscene symbol Bill was showing there.
But it was a heart. What do you mean obscene? You said happy Valentine's Day.
Signs.
Okay, maybe.
Oh, there you go.
Nancy actually generated stuff. See, you have the wrong organ. I think little spleens are coming up on my screen for you, Bill. But more on that later.
I think I can do something else too, but I've got to look it up. Anyway, go ahead.
There's fish. Okay, well, we are joined, of course, by our usual lawyerly troika of Joel Sklar, Bill Seikaly, as well as now all of Steve Fishman instead of half of him there. We have labor and community activist Barb Ingalls. We have veteran journalist Nancy Derringer. And of course, we have co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. So I don't know if you had any trouble getting into any buildings, but it seems as though last week House Democratic Congress people had a real dickens of a time trying to get into the Department of Education building, where they were barred not by Capitol Security, but by a private security firm, which allegedly has ties to Blackwater and may be underwritten by Elon Musk. Is this really where we are now in Washington?
Short answer, yes.
Is that rhetorical? Yeah.
And when I talk to people about it, they say, I'm so upset. I just can't pay attention to it. It's just driving me crazy. And it's like, well, you better. So, because this is where we are.
Outrage, overload.
Yeah.
Thank you, Faris Khan, for the very nice approbation of the show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening in, and this is why we do it. Yeah, I mean, this is there. No, there's no relationship. Still, is this really though the kind of to put it in another way? I think we've used the phrase shock and awe, that we are just becoming exhausted and fatigued to the constant barrage of these kinds of things to, in a certain way, normalize it.
I think that's sort of the character of the Trump administration from last time. It's like, oh my God, initially it's like he told a lie, and then it's like after a while it's like, so what? What else is new? And I think what we're seeing here is like, oh my God, look, he's dismissing the charges against Eric Adams. He's doing this. He's shutting down a whole agency. He's firing the FBI. And after a while, it's so dizzying. I mean, you know, that Atlantic article where Hitler dismantled democracy in 153 days or something.
53.
Was it 53 days?
Yeah.
Well,
53 days.
I think he's trying to beat that record because he's very competitive, you know.
Well, I mean, that seems to be where, but all of this, what seems to then be chaos, is happening on both the domestic as well as on the foreign front. So it looks like President Trump is using his negotiation tactics as a good businessman to work on actual allies of the United States, Jordan and Egypt, by threatening to withhold aid to both of these countries if they refuse to take in Gazans in this plan to go ahead and ethnically cleanse the region, for making it the quote unquote Riviera of the Middle East. Not to mention that it's, of course, against international law. A reporter asked him, under whose authority are you doing this? And he said, U.S. authority. So what does this say then about America's posture around the world? I mean, we have Vice President Vance over at the Munich Security Conference, which berating our allies over there seemed to also be what he was doing, with the suspicion of having an audience of one, them not being any of that audience. Bill?
I think more than an audience of one, Saeed. I think that I mean, I just read the summary of his speech this morning, but he clearly seemed to be aligning with the right wing of all the European nations, who, by the way, had held a conference in Madrid last week and called it Make Europe Great Again. See any patterns here? And he didn't address any of the issues that he should have addressed in this conference. He did nothing to relieve the anxiety of our allies and did everything to provide support to our enemies, assuming that Russia is still our enemy and Ukraine is Europe or our allies, which I don't think is necessarily true under this administration. But I want to back a little bit. I think the more fundamental question is, why is it that so much of the American population is so silent on these issues? And perhaps more importantly, why is so much of Republican Congress? You know, the Republicans have always been anti-Russian and pro-Ukrainian. Their silence on this issue is deafening. And I think we need to ask these questions. I mean, have we just abandoned this notion of checks and balances? Do we have co-equal branches, or are the Republicans in Congress simply there to do Trump's bidding? And if it is, then I think you need to go back to the article in the Atlantic and compare what Trump is doing to what Hitler did. Dismantling democracy.
Fishman, what say ye?
Well, the first thing I say is that you're assuming a fact, not an evidence, when Saeed called him a good businessman. The guy was a failed businessman. Mark Burnett, who is Schmuck of forever, is the one that saved his ass. So who are we kidding? He's no good businessman. With respect to this other stuff, I think the Atlantic article is accurate. I think that there are plenty of people making noise, but none of them are in the Republican Party, as Bill was saying. And I think the answer is simple. I read a really good column in the Bulwark yesterday where they talked about how people submit to authoritarianism. And the first thing they do is they say, well, not this issue. I'll save it for another issue. The second thing is they think that, well, maybe if I keep quiet here, they'll look at me better over there in the MAGA group. Both of those things are insane, right? Once you refuse to take a stand, then it's much easier to not take another stand when it comes up again, because you can say, look, you know, we're not getting anywhere anyway. And the second thing, to pretend that those people in the MAGA group ever give a shit about anybody else that's not with them, that's ludicrous. But that's where we're at. I mean,
you'll notice, Steve, that the fellow who was with us last week, the Republican strategist, I'm blanking on his name.
Jason Rowe.
Yeah, Jason Rowe. That was exactly what he was saying to me last week. He was saying, look, you've got to wait until there's a real constitutional crisis. You got to wait. You got to wait. You got to wait. Look at the reason I'm acting like my hair's on fire is I don't have any, but it is on fire.
But you did, and we have evidence of that.
We don't need to see this again.
But seriously, I mean, this is a time when okay. It's not a time for that. It's a time for saying, I think mainly to Republicans, to the extent that we have any left. The Democrats know what's going on. The Democrats aren't voting. I mean, look, when we've got Mitch McConnell voting with all the Democrats to try and stop some of these nominations.
Robert Kennedy Jr.
and Gifford. But this is crazy. And yet he can't seem to bring any of the Republicans along with him, not even Collins.
You've seen him in recent days. He's being pushed around in a wheelchair. He's half dead. He's a lame duck. He's not running again. He missed his shot to stop this years ago.
I disagree.
So I have absolutely.
He thought he was controlling Trump. He thought he could get his Supreme Court and he could get his issues through, and it got out. It clearly got out of control, and now he's looking to save his place in history. But where are all the other Republicans?
Yeah,
where are they?
Well, they're all quaking in their boots at the idea that they might be primaried, and that's basically where they are. And when the history of this era is written, they'll be painted as cowards because they are cowards. And I would even throw in a few Democrats. I mean, I have been writing letters to Peters and Alyssa Slotkin for 2 weeks now, and I just looked at Alyssa Slotkin's social media, and hey, it's Galentine's Day, having some of the gals over for some Galentine's party. It's like, stop.
Oh, let's go. Nancy, let's go.
Nancy.
I got some flowers for her.
I gotta say, FOMO's not a good look on you. Joel,
I have one point to make. I think the question was about what's going on in Europe and European realignment. Clearly, we're stepping out of that. We're deconstructing, destroying all the institutions that were post-World War II to maintain peace in the world. It wasn't perfect, but it's pretty much done its job. There's been no nuclear holocaust, thank God. Every country is going to be out for its own. That's what Trump is. That's what we symbolize. We become nihilistic, incredibly narcissistic ourselves. We're the only country that matters. Every country is going to start taking that approach. Everybody's leaning right. That's what's going on, in Europe. That's what's happening. This is a frightening time. I'll be, I hope. I hope this doesn't manifest soon, but it's going to. It can't help but do so because the rapidity by which he's deconstructing these institutions that we take for granted, it's going to be a hard fall. It's going to be quicker than I think people think.
Joel, think it's not going to manifest soon?
It's going to manifest soon. It's going to manifest soon. I think that's the problem. It's going to manifest real quick because every country is going to be out for themselves. Everybody's going to have a bludgeon because cudgels and beating and bullying is the way to go.
More than that, Joel, do you think that this is just driving even some of our allies closer to, ironically, China and some of our adversaries?
Yes.
There's going to be a realignment. There's a vacuum that's going to be filled by China, I would think. They are our number one competitor. I think that alliance is going to be a real alliance. That's going to be an economic alliance. We're almost embargoing ourselves, right?
You see the people
not to do business with us. We're begging people, don't do work with us.
You see the people who've come to kiss the ring already. It was Netanyahu, and then it was Modi from India. And these are fairly prostitutional relationships. Modi mollified Trump by saying, you have MAGA, we have MEGA, make India great again. And of course, Trump said, all right, the licensing fee for that is, so many rupees. So it seems as though that's already happening. Allan.
I was going to say, like the US aid and all that kind of stuff is like, if we don't feed people, China, Russia, Iran will. It's like, and you know this better than I, and it seems like the Chechens, the radical Islamists started feeding them and nurturing them and won them over. It's like people are like, what about us? We have people starving in the US. Why should we care about them? They don't understand the global relations there. I was going to say real quickly about after the vote with RFK Jr., Senator Murkowski was in the elevator and someone yells, well, aren't you concerned about RFK? And she goes, well, that's why we're going to be monitoring him. She voted for the guy.
That'll work.
And then Susan Collins, he has assured me that he's going to. I'm sorry, I shouldn't make fun of something she has no control.
Oh, no, you can make fun of Susan Collins.
But Susan Collins and Croaky Kennedy himself are two that I just make an exception for. But I'm going to be keeping an eye on him, and he has assured me that he's not going to interfere with vaccine approval. It's like, give me a break. You are the dumbest woman in the world, and here you are. So
I want to go ahead and pick up on something that one of our listeners or viewers, Faris No Relation Khan, posed about the idea of moderate Republicans forming a third party, and whether or not that's going to be successful. I think that from what I understand now, that essentially presumes that the current GOP is well in the hands of MAGA. And so any group that then comes out of that is going to be at a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't have a parliamentary system. Third parties are like, what's the old expression? It's like wetting your pants in a blue serge suit. It's just that it feels good, but it doesn't.
I grew up in England. I have no idea what the hell that meant.
18% of Dearborn voted for Jill Stein this last time because they couldn't stand to vote for what did that get them? Nothing. You know,
it got them street cred for voting for a Jewish woman. Don't ever forget that.
Yes,
Okay.
the mayor of Hamtramck on last Friday, defended his voting or support of Trump, saying, I don't agree with everything, but I still am proud that I voted for him. I don't agree with, he says, I don't agree with the Gaza plan, but I agree with him. And there were other people agreeing with him on Facebook. And there was one guy who said, you can't admit that you were duped or whatever. And which, you know, we'll see when they start rounding up people in Hamtramck, how supportive people are of him.
By the way, speaking of rounding up,
people don't believe. I'm sorry.
Yes, I did.
No, please, Bill, go ahead.
In case people don't believe that's going to happen, you notice that they are firing people at Homeland Security and at ICE for not rounding up enough illegal aliens. I mean, this is incredible.
It is.
And we've got prosecutors who are resigning because of what's going on in New York. And yeah, okay, it's making the news, but okay,
so let's
resigning. That's how we get rid of them.
Let's talk about that, Bill. And by the way, speaking of rounding up the usual suspects, if anybody would like, I believe this weekend at the Redford Theater in Detroit, there's going to be a screening of Casablanca. So there you go. I'm not a paid sponsor for that, but if the Redford Theater sends us all tickets, this week, the weekend wasn't going.
We have a video of Eric Adams.
You know what? I applaud Donald Trump for letting a blue city mayor off the hook. This sends a message. Donald Trump is not about being a Democrat or a Republican. As long as you're criminally corrupt, you're his people.
What days have come that a Democratic mayor of New York City, a totally blue city, has now succumbed to kissing the ring of Donald Trump to the level that the prosecutor in New York City, Danielle Sasson, tendered her resignation. And I know, Fish, you had a bit of a bee in your bonnet about this one.
Well, I think it was interesting at the beginning. Somebody was saying that nobody's sticking up for righteousness or anything. And that's as wrong as two left shoes. Not just that lady, but the people at the public integrity section in Washington, D.C., 6 or 7 people have already resigned, and they have not yet found somebody to bring to Judge Ho the notion of trying to dismiss the case. I think it's one of the most significant things that has happened. It's reminiscent, I'm old enough to remember, when back in the Watergate days when they wanted to fire Archibald Cox and Elliot Richardson and Bill Ruckelshaus wouldn't do it, and that brought Nixon down. It shows you the difference, by the way. In those days, it actually brought the president down.
The Saturday Night Massacre.
The Saturday Night Massacre. Yeah. So I think what she's done, and this is a young woman, she's not even 40, by the way, and she's got this fantastic background, very, very conservative background, Federalist Society, clerk for Justice Scalia, but she has now put herself out on the line, which is exactly what Bill and what all of us have been talking about. John Thune can't do it. The Republican in the House can't do it. But here's a woman who is in her 30s, for God's sake, who is putting her entire public career on the line. And you got to give her and the people at Public Integrity a lot of credit. Here's the thing that there's a couple things, though, that people need to know. The first thing is, just so you know how outrageous it is, there was nothing wrong with the defense lawyers meeting with the government lawyers. We do it all the time. There's also nothing wrong with the defense lawyer saying to a government lawyer, look, my client can help you guys out. Generally, it's with something criminal, of course, not like this, but my client can help the government with X, Y, or Z. That's fine, too. What's not fine is I certainly never did it, and I've never heard of anybody doing it. Look, we're only going to do this if the quid pro quo is you dismiss the case. Cooperation with the government is something that's brought to the sentencing judge's attention at the time of sentence. Generally, people who are going to cooperate enter a guilty plea, and they cooperate in other criminal behavior or whatever. What's going on there, what they're suggesting is this big deal. He's going to help Trump deport illegal immigrants. Fine. If you think that's something that's important, then when he gets sentenced after he takes his guilty plea or he's convicted by the jury, which he would have been for sure, then you can go in and say to the judge, look, judge, in addition to everything else about him, you ought to consider his cooperation with the government as to X, Y, or Z. That's how it's supposed to go. What Emile Beauvais did and admitted to, basically, in his idiot letters, and you contrast that with, I thought her name was Sassoon, but if it's Sasson, that's fine. You can. I read her entire letter. That's a letter citing case law, talking about her history there, talking about the history of the United States Department of Justice. That is how things are supposed to be. And if everybody sits back and lets this thing slide, that's going to be really interesting. But I can tell you some people who won't. That's the lawyers. She's not going to have any problem getting a job. That's for sure. Because there'll be firms galore trying to give her a position. The same thing with the men. I think it was all men that were at the public integrity section. And they're all stepping down too. That's what needs to happen. And it's kind of sad that it's only lawyers and judges that seem to be doing this stuff. None of our great politicians.
Watch. Trump will say she was a DEI hire. I'm glad she's
No. You know what he said? What did he do? This guy, I thought about this all week. I have forgotten to say, like I used to say, since the guy first was in office, whenever we would talk about him, I'd always go regular mind, criminal mind. We have to keep in mind, again, the man's a criminal. And how did he show it here? What's what criminals always do? If there's something that you can't explain, I don't know anything about it. When he was asked about it, he didn't say she's a DEI. I don't know anything about that. I haven't heard anything about it. Why? Because he has a criminal mind, and criminal minds work like that. When they get to the point where they can't answer the question, even their lie is going to be too obvious. Oh, what do you mean? I don't know anything about it. That's what's going on in New York.
Allan.
I mean, I think it's interesting that he's bought another Democratic politician. Kwame Kilpatrick, who was a Democrat, went and campaigned for him the whole time. And you have Rod Blagojevich, another Democrat who he now is pardoned, has cleaned his slate there. Kwame commuted his sentence, but he's basically bought these, and he's now in New York City, where I'm sure he loves New York City and feels that he hasn't been welcome because he's so hated. And now he's got the mayor who loves him. I hope Eric, he's up for election, Eric Adams, and I hope he does not get reelected.
But wait, the governor has the authority in New York, which we've all read these articles. The governor can remove him. Yeah. And I don't really know much about the governor. Maybe you guys know more. If you wanted to do something that showed you had some balls, that's exactly what you ought to do. Because that backing up what the U.S. attorney in the Southern District and the people at the public integrity section, that would really make it pretty damn clear to the world that, look, it's not just the lawyers. Me as a politician, as the governor, I can see this guy has as much business being mayor as the professional criminal has being president. And that would be something. And let's see if she has any chutzpah. I won't say balls because she's female. All right. So let's see if she has any chutzpah.
I'm going to say she's not. I think to remove particularly a black politician in a major city is a tough.
I don't think in this case, man.
Yeah, I think
New York's pretty savvy. New Yorkers.
We'll see.
So on this issue about corruption, it seems as though the Trump administration also is ecumenical about whether it's happening on the domestic front or on the national or on the international front. A Trump executive order has paused the enforcement of the a foreign bribery ban law. So right now, I suppose anybody in the administration can go ahead and give a little something to anybody who's a foreign official, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Is that my understanding? Yes, Steve.
Yeah.
I think, again, going back to my usual example, this is a criminal mentality. And this is what we have here, what we really have here, in addition to the incompetence, in addition to the Elon Musk stuff, this is a criminal organization. That's what they are. They're no different. He loved John Gotti, right? He thought he doesn't know anything about the shooting and the fighting and all that kind of stuff, but he liked the fact that this guy had control over everybody and he could speak and everybody did what he was told, blah, 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 blah. That's exactly what we're doing here. You're basically telling everyone. I wouldn't be surprised. I brought this up at the gym this morning. What do you guys think? Is it impossible that he'll pardon Menendez?
I was just thinking that exact same thing.
Wow.
Steve, I want to go to your gym and just, I want to sit in the glow of Steve Fishman on the treadmill, like just freestyling, I mean,
in the locker room. You don't want to be there.
Is there a conference? Is there a conference room off the ellipticals? I mean,
we look at back to the original point. Not talking about exercising with me, and it's a long drive from Grosse Pointe.
I know it is.
To our gym on Southfield Road and 13th.
but totally worth it.
I'm just doffing my hat with respect because my gym is boring as shit. But go ahead.
Well, look where you live. I mean, come on, seriously. What do you expect? Did you ever go to Grosse Pointe before you moved in there? They could put an
Aren't the treadmills there like polo horses?
and they're little green things.
Someone comes out and dabs your forehead.
Anyway, but back to our original point. It's an opportunity here. If this governor had the chutzpah to do it, this is an opportunity to show, hey, here's something that's a bridge too far. And I agree with Joel. There's no way. Black people in the city of Detroit, in the city of New York, aren't stupid. They see what the guy is. He's a criminal.
Yes.
He's a criminal. They don't want a criminal. And I saw the guy that's, I forget what his job is. He was on Nicole Wallace's show. On Chris Hayes' show. He's running for mayor. Landers. This guy was very interesting to listen to. Yeah, I love what Ferris is putting up there. She needs some. Doesn't that sound like the Republicans? I just need to process this and figure it out.
It sounds like
She's putting her finger in the wind.
Right. If you can't tell right from wrong, you have no business being dog catcher, let alone governor of New York.
This is what she did over the congestion pricing issue in New York City, which was, she pulled it out at the last minute. I mean, she just couldn't stand to take a bold move, and then it ended up going into effect anyway. Sorry, go ahead.
Bill,
I want to piggyback on what Steve said. We have a real crisis in leadership in this country. As Nancy said, they want to put their finger in the wind. They want to figure out where's everybody going, and I want to get in front of them. That's not leadership. Leadership is standing up during difficult times and saying, this is wrong. This is what's right. And we need to go with what's right, not with what's wrong.
It's courage.
Even if it's not popular. It's having integrity. It's having courage.
Right.
Whatever.
It's putting yourself out there. It's putting yourself on the line to stand up for something.
That's right.
What that young lawyer
we don't
did.
have leadership in this country anymore. I mean, I'm so tired of people saying, and I know some people on this panel have said it. I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but Kamala Harris was a terrible candidate. We should have been able to run a dog catcher against Trump and win. The problem is we have a crisis in leadership. Nobody is standing up at any level for what's right and fighting against what's wrong anymore, whether it's popular or not. Everybody wants to do what's popular. They want to figure out where everybody else is going. That's going to take us to 1938 Germany.
Right.
And in the meantime, what we're doing is we're laying off thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are working for a living and doing a good job. Something like federal employees' salaries make up 4% of the budget. 4% of the budget, and that's who's going first. And what's going to happen out here, away from the courts and away from the halls of power, are people. Everyone's bitching about eggs, but it's a symbol.
Yeah,
it's good. It was never about that. But the thing is that everything is creeping up. All that food that is sitting in warehouses because of the U.S. aid bullshit, that came from farms that are going to lose up all their money. Family farms are going to go, but who are going to buy up those farms? Big corporations. Are they going to make the food any healthier? Like RFK Jr. says, there'll be less processed food. Bullshit. Yeah. We're going to get sicker. We're going to get poorer. Mm-hmm. And what is happening is it's going to pit Americans against each other, trying to figure out how to help this, and people in cities and people in the farms and people up north, and I have to say, a couple weeks ago, you guys all kind of laughed at me because I said that I thought that Jocelyn Benson and all the other Democratic politicians should be up in northern Michigan where no one ever talks to them, and they should fucking talk to them, because they didn't vote for a good reason, because they felt completely isolated from the process. And when no one goes up there and when no one talks to them, they're going to get more and more disenfranchised. And in the meantime, we're going to have less food. The water's going to get disgusting. We are out here. We're fucked if we don't do something. And people are jumping up and beginning to do things, but it's like little groups of women, you know, are not enough. Waiting for the courts, with all due respect, and I love you guys, is not going to be enough. We have to do more. We're going to see buyer's remorse, Ron Smith. We're about to see big time buyer's remorse, but they're going to blame us.
Yeah, they'll blame us.
Well,
I was just going to say, remember,
this
is the president who during COVID didn't want us to test. He didn't want tests because tests came out positive sometimes, and he drove the numbers up. So the price of eggs is going to fall soon, and you know, the chickens are going to have bird flu, and because we're not going to have enough.
And then so are we.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that, I mean, I was trying to explain to some of my students the other day that how we used to in high school allegedly egg houses, and they're like, "Man, that must have been really an expensive thrill for you." I'm like, damn right. Alan, I think we have video about this.
We do have.
Somehow regular eggs have become more valuable than Fabergé.
She means the world to you. She's your everything. Why not give her a gift as rare and precious as she is? Take her breath away with an egg. This humanely sourced grade A cage-free egg comes with a certificate of authenticity, along with a framed photo of the hen that laid it.
I'm telling you, for those of you who haven't picked up something for your significant other for Valentine's Day, now's the time.
Can I let you guys in on a little secret? I buy my eggs at Eastern Market. This is my favorite errand of the week. I go to Eastern Market on Saturday mornings. I buy vegetables and whatever else is around, and I get my eggs there. And I've been paying about $6 a dozen, and they are outstanding eggs. They are the yolks are big and orange. They come in all different colors because the chickens aren't all white. You know, and $6, from what I understand, is a pretty fair price. I mean, these are eggs from chickens that walk around. They're not, you know, caged, and it's like I don't want to tell too many of you to run down there and get your eggs there, but it's worth $6.
Just don't get in front of Nancy.
So Nancy, that is probably in all these years the most gross point thing I've ever heard you say.
I go to the Royal Oak Farmers Market every Saturday morning. I buy vegetables, and I buy eggs, and I buy perfect chocolate croissant.
Can I make one? I just want to go quick point, real quick. Is that I think the reality is that the recent election was a referendum on authoritarianism versus democracy as we've lived it, and this is where we're going. That's the reality we have to accept. Most of the electorate apparently wants an authoritarian democracy, and those do exist. They're not they're not a constitutional republic like we know it, but there was a huge article in the Foreign Affairs magazine about that's what's going on.
Yeah,
and that's where we are, and that's
Joel,
where we're going.
You're a therapist. You used to be a therapist. You know that the vast majority of the people that you probably saw in therapy just wanted somebody to tell them what to do, right?
Right.
They didn't want to make their own decisions.
They want to be led. That's why leadership, you know, again, these people apparently now with the chaos that he's created, the panic, the fear, want to be told they're okay. They want a patriarch. He's it. So this is
I don't know.
All the earmarks of it are in, and they're not going away. We're getting worse. So that's the fundamental reality that I think is happening here. No matter what, you know, we can stand up for all we want, but that's where the world's headed.
But if you talk to any therapist right now, any therapist, my wife's a therapist, and we were at dinner with a couple other therapists.
I did not know that. Your wife's a therapist too.
Yeah. Okay. And they are overwhelmed, and all of their clients are talking about the political climate.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, Joni sometimes comes out and goes, "Oh my God, I can't take any more of this." And then she has to come out and talk to me. which makes matters even
Well,
worse.
anxiety is contagious, as we were told in psych school. You know what it is. You know, you get they're frenetic, we're frenetic, and that is not a good place to be.
By the way, I can't help. I've got a comment on Ron Smith, who I do not know, but he's got some great comments. He apparently went and talked to John James' staff earlier this week and comments that John James' staff does not have a clue. And they know more than he does. His staff is clearly more aware than he is.
He is one of the emptiest suits I have ever seen stand in front of a microphone.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
And he comes to my gym. He comes to my gym.
Does he really? I think that it's critical that people like Ron and other people, because this is the point I really wanted to make, that you can contact. I'm not going to discourage anybody from contacting Democrats, but I think it's critical that we contact every Republican member of Congress and every Republican we can and say, I don't like this. It needs to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I voted for you, and this needs to stop. Because if we don't, Joel's right, and we might as well hang it up. And I concede this might not work. And I also agree, Barb, with what you said. It's not enough. It's critical that we do rely on the courts, but it's not enough to rely on the courts.
I have written to a few Republicans, and I have told them that I don't live in your district, but if you keep this up, I intend to donate to your opponent, whoever it is, and fuck you and the horse you rode in on.
I thought you said. I thought you were going to say
that, but it's important to say to your Republican opponent.
Yeah, although often the
Republican, not worried about Democrats.
I thought, Nancy, you were going to say that I don't live in your district, but I know where you live. Before we cut to commercial, just two things. One, I've been speaking to some people who did vote for Trump, and who really leaned into the idea about how poor a candidate Kamala Harris was. So it wasn't as though there was just a full ideological slant to the right. On the point of leadership, I think that this whole idea about retaliatory weaponizing of policies, university presidents and others are really scared that if they step out of line, some Trump official is going to put them on a list to cut funding, which with the way that budgets are now at universities is absolutely critical. So I think that along with courage, Joel, I think we're also talking about moral hazard and whether an individual has the ability to just simply look out for their own principles without thinking about all of the other things that and issues they represent. Allan, let's go to commercial.
All righty.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
So what are the two things that Joe Cocker and Oasis have in common? Anyone know?
I don't know who Oasis is.
Beetle covers.
Well, that was one of them. But both of them have been nominated to be part of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and neither of them is going to get a Kennedy Center honor, and certainly not now, because Donald Trump has named himself the chair of the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. And Allan, I think we've got video.
All right, I'm sorry. Flashing the things here. Wait, we're talking about the
Kennedy Center.
Yep. All right.
Trump spoke today with Russian President Vladimir Putin on the phone. And bad news, you guys, we got to change the name of the Gulf again. Reporters yesterday from the Oval Office with President Trump. And I got to say, not the best optics for Trump there. I mean, look at this photo. Musk looks like the cool CEO of a tech startup, and Trump looks like the elderly security guard who came with the building. When asked about a post on X in which he falsely claimed the U.S. government had sent $50 million worth of condoms to Gaza, Elon Musk told reporters, quote, "Nobody's going to bat 1,000. Yeah, I mean, you can't expect a guy with 12 kids to get the facts right about condoms."
He also, over the weekend, made himself the chairman of the Kennedy Center and cut off Joe Biden's access to daily intelligence briefings. So I guess now we will have two presidents who don't read the daily intelligence briefings.
I mean, I didn't think that anybody could defile the Oval Office more than the current president, but Musk did it. I mean, he brought his 4-year-old kid, who apparently the only saving grace was he told Donald Trump to shush himself.
That was the best.
Yeah.
I wish we could have just pulled off. That would have been even better.
But the
His
fact
child
that
named Max, by the way.
The fact that the 4-year-old was picking his nose in the Oval Office, I think the person feeling most vindicated for bad behavior in the Oval Office is Bill Clinton. So, just thinking about that.
So, if you read the Borowitz report, there's a great article in the Borowitz report about
it was in the private washroom in the Oval Office. Okay, not in a little side thing.
Resolute desk or whatever.
Anyway, it was
Well, apparently that means that there's 2 presidents that had that missing 18 and a half minutes, Nancy. So, I mean, looking at resistance and pushing back, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, along with several other state attorneys general, have sued the Trump administration to block the cuts that have been proposed on research grants. And here in the state of Michigan, particularly the University Research Corridor, which is a consortium of now 4 research universities, U of M, Michigan State, Wayne State, and now, happy to say, also Michigan Tech University, has really been up the junction about what to do about this, because it involves NIH grants and all kinds of other funding upon which especially public universities are reliant. So how do you see this lawsuit going, especially since it's going to require going up against members of the judiciary that are Trump appointees?
At least she's doing something, I mean, at least Dana Nessel is taking the fight to him. I mean, it may be fruitless, but it's, she's doing it. And when you said before about university presidents are quaking in their boots, I could see that at Wayne State. I could see that at, some small college somewhere. But goddamn, the University of Michigan has an endowment of like $1 gazillion. They've reached the point where they can essentially make it free. If you're not, for any middle class student, it's like, what would it take for Santa Ono to nut up a little bit on this one? I think we need to, in any fight, you always risk losing something, but I think we need to stop worrying so much about that. And, because that makes us no better than these Republicans who are terrified of being primaried.
But, and also, Saeed, I just agree with your premise. The fact of the matter is, we haven't lost. These Trump judges have been going against Trump. The only cases that Trump has won have been on issues of standing. Whether or not the unions can bring an action to stop these layoffs and stuff, that case, they lost that case, but it was on the issue of whether the union had standing to bring it. The people who have opposed it, brought these lawsuits, have not lost on the substance a single one of these cases yet.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm just a little
Many of them have been in front of Trump judges.
I'm a bit diffident about SCOTUS, Bill. That's why. I mean, if it goes all the way up, what then is going to be the fate at the Supreme Court level?
Well, there's that.
Well, listen, we have 3 branches of government, and if the Supreme Court and Congress both acquiesce, democracy's dead. Joel will have been absolutely right.
Steve,
never gonna happen.
Well, everybody keeps saying that about the Supreme Court, but when people want to say, well, the lawyers aren't getting anywhere, blah, 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 the lawyers are the ones bringing the cases. We have to find out what it is the Supreme Court's going to say. We know what Thomas and Alito are going to say, but we don't know what the other 7 are going to, not 7, the other 4 are going to say until it gets something there. And we have to keep doing what they're doing, and let's get it there. And let's see if these guys really are going to, is Kavanaugh going to do that? Is the new lady, Amy?
Yeah, Barrett. Yeah,
I'm not so sure, but we got to do it. It doesn't mean you don't.
I'm not even so sure about Gorsuch. I agree. Look at these people, especially in the Supreme Court. They know what history is going to show.
Right.
They don't have to worry about being impeached. They're going to be there for the rest of their lives. And it has created courage in others. You get Alito and Thomas. Unfortunately, I don't think they believe in democracy, so they, their votes are going to be their votes. But
I think given the age of some of them, Bill, given the age of some of them, I'm worried that they're going to be there for the rest of our lives. So that's something to go ahead and get.
That was the point of Kavanaugh and Barrett. Completely the point.
Well,
and Squee knew this. So well. On the local front, Mayor Duggan has named Todd Bettison as the permanent Detroit police chief. Any thoughts about how this is going to look on the city stage? Yes, Allan.
I mean, I think it was a sure thing. We had Todd on shortly after he was appointed. I mean, Todd was he was with the department for 27 years, became the deputy mayor under Duggan, then became the interim chief, and like a week after becoming the interim chief, he said, "I'm confident I'll become the permanent chief." It's going to have to be approved by the council, but I think it's an automatic. He's solid. It's a safe bet putting him there. I think he'll be there for a while. I don't see a new mayor firing him. Whether it's Mary Sheffield is going to have to approve him, but yeah. So I don't see any real. It's a safe bet. I mean, Todd's a very likable guy. He's got a good standing in the community. I think it was kind of a no-brainer.
I noticed that Ira Todd's been is on, and I'm curious about what he thinks about this.
Ira Todd. You want to calling Ira Todd?
calling commenter Ira Todd.
Well, I thought
I'll sit quietly and wait until he types something.
Yes. I thought someone was going to say it was a safe choice. Tessio was always smarter. Anyway, well, some very, very disturbing news here in the city of Detroit. A few days ago, 2 children were found frozen to death in a parked car at the Greektown casino parking lot. I mean, the imagery and just the very thought of it was heartbreaking. Have you heard anything more about what is happening and what are the circumstances behind it?
I mean, they're looking into it. They're trying to figure out where the failures were. She supposedly reached out for services and did not get what she needed. I mean, the problem is a lot of these people don't want to do shelters because particularly you have children, their shelters can be unsafe. People steal. There's bullies. There's predators sometimes there. I mean, it's kind of a shame. A lot of those street people don't want to go there. They get stuff stolen. They have to deal with crazy personalities. So they figure they'll, but there is, the question becomes, we talked about it, whether it becomes an issue in this campaign. I don't think it's going to be a central issue, but it'll be about city services. I think it'll come up.
Well, it's interesting to me as somebody who used to spend a lot more time downtown. There's not really a huge homeless presence in the downtown of Detroit the way there is in other cities. And I get the feeling that there has been a concerted effort to move those people out. Barb, well, yeah, I mean that, and if you're going to move them out of the central city, then you really have to provide something more for them. And there's, we just don't. Nobody gives a shit, and it's terrible, until
everyone failed. Everyone failed.
And then we all say, "Ooh, how did this happen?" It's like
this woman had 5 children. She's young. I mean, she's impoverished. She's overwhelmed. I mean, this is just such. This is like the worst times.
Nobody helped her. Nobody helped her. And we failed every one of them
so far and do so much. She's overwhelmed. I mean, I heard her speak. It's just
exactly.
It's horrific and it's tragic.
People are blaming her.
Bill,
I don't blame her.
I think
I wouldn't blame her.
I watched. So I was kind of intrigued by this. I watched the interview of her on WXYZ and then the interview of the father on WXYZ, and I also watched the interview with Duggan, who admitted that she did call the city
3 times,
and then turned around amazingly and said, but she didn't follow up. Well, notice that they didn't follow up either. And the father said, well, she kept on saying, can you come take the kids? But she didn't tell me why. Like, that's a defense. You don't take your kids for 3 months.
People
So I don't think that it's fair to blame her. But I also want to take a moment to put a plug in. I've been very involved with Cass Community Social Services, who provide a lot of housing for homeless people and do it in very high quality ways. If you have any doubt, go down, take a tour of their shelters. If somebody wants to do something to help homeless people in this city, I suggest that you should donate to Cass Community Social Services.
Yeah,
they have housing at every level, from drop in, need something immediately, to more long term
tiny home program. The tiny home program.
Yeah, they are just the most outstanding program. They're really trying to do something about structural poverty in this country, and I think they're amazing.
Yeah.
And there are people that drive in vans all night long, looking for people, finding them, giving them things to make them warm, trying to get them somewhere. But the need is overwhelming. And no, they're not downtown anymore, because that downtown is now a beautiful playground.
Well, that's the thing. It's all about the NFL draft now, and it's not about, the people who don't have a place to lay their heads. It's just
so many people freeze to death in the city of Detroit. I help feed unhoused people a couple times a month when I can get out there. There are saints that are out there every single time. And one of our favorite guys that we fed for 15 years froze to death in a parking structure or a bus shelter a couple years ago. And there was no story. The guy that froze in the train station, there was a stupid gotcha moment, but people are freezing. That's why they open up all these shelters, but there's so much need and there's so little help, and it's so hard to get the information out to people. And and the reason that we're talking about this now is because a 2-year-old died. God bless that poor baby.
Yeah.
And a 7-year-old.
And a 9-year-old. But I mean,
I read Todd's response, by the way.
Yeah.
No.
Todd is qualified, knowledgeable, and fair, but some of my buddies are not feeling it. But overall, Todd has earned it. He loves the community, and he's a hardworking person.
Good assessment.
Okay.
Well, Nancy, you were mentioning the NFL draft. I guess this year it's going to be in Green Bay. I don't think they're going to be able to top what we did here in Detroit, because there's no Campus Martius up there. But speaking of football, the coda for the season did occur last week with Super Bowl Sunday, and a good old-fashioned whooping of the Kansas City Chiefs by the Philadelphia Eagles was not even close. So thoughts on the game, the ads, or for you, Faris Khan, Kendrick Lamar and the halftime show? Steve?
I didn't watch the halftime show. I turned the game off at halftime. The only thought I have about the ads, how'd you like to be somebody who bought one of those expensive ads in the fourth quarter? Because again, going by the gym and conversation on Monday, going by that, there was one person who said they watched the entire game. Everybody else either turned it off at halftime, a couple minutes into the third quarter. I hope, like hell, that it was some group or some whatever, some people we can't stand that had those ads, because the thought of how much they spent for how few people were watching, to me, was hilarious.
Yeah. It's true.
Also, defense wins championships. I mean, that defense was ridiculous. They played a great defensive game.
Six
Jalen
sacks on
Hurts just
Mahomes.
wins. He won in Alabama. He won in Oklahoma. He was just had a wonderful game. I'm happy for him. The guy is just a decent human being. He still lives in a small apartment. He's making hundreds of millions. Just a very modest, humble guy. I'm thrilled. I hate the Philadelphia fans. They're like the biggest assholes in sport. I mean, they'll beat the shit out of you wearing people are getting beat up wearing Chiefs jersey. It was nuts. So, but fuck them. But I'm happy for Jalen Hurts. They deserved it. They earned it. Built a great team. My hat's off to them, man. Defense wins. They were great.
So Joel, next time you're around them, wear a Rocky shirt and a Chiefs hat.
How you doing? Everything going? Don't worry about hockey.
The Philly fans are pretty overpowering. Living in DC, they used to come down for like the national games, and they were pretty obnoxious. But
and can I just say, Taylor Swift's boyfriend bent over and kissed Donald Trump's fat ass, and then Trump turned around and insulted his girlfriend again. So I'm really, really hoping for a breakup followed by a top 10 song, about it called Drop Pass. So there we go.
I got, one thing that really concerned me was the Kanye West commercial, which I don't know that showed in every market, but the fact is, besides that it was so weird, then it says just go to ye.com or something, and you go to that website, and there's one thing, a white t-shirt with a swastika. And you can't tell me that if it had been if it had a t-shirt with the N-word or something, that commercial would have gotten on the air.
Right.
And the fact that for a Jew to see the swastika is the equivalent of the N-word, and it's a fuck you Jews. And I'm surprised, maybe not so much, that it was allowed on the air. Even though they're glad to take his $8 million for airing it. But
since we've had a couple comments here about the halftime show, I just want to say it's interesting to me that these Gen Xers who are like, why couldn't they have Prince or somebody else?
Well, he's dead.
Yeah, I know he's dead. But or somebody like Prince, and it's like, hey, welcome to being a boomer. Okay. There's a very useful idea that you have to learn as you get older, and it's not for you. Okay. And the Kendrick Lamar show was not for you. It was not for the boomers. It was not for the
my demographic.
It wasn't for the millennials. It was truly for the Gen Z crowd. And I watched it again the next day on YouTube, and it wasn't for me, but I thought it was I really liked the dancing. I liked the way it was staged, for a stadium crowd and a television crowd. I thought it was pretty great. So,
well, Nancy, I'm pretty sure that most of the original members of Up With People are also dead. So in case you wanted something that appealed to you, I think
and you know what? If you wanted that stuff, we turned the game on about 4:30, I think, or turned the TV on around 4:30, and there was they call it the pre-kick show. They had Lady Gaga and some other people and a marching band, and it was a little more traditional, and it was very enjoyable. So it's like
all your old white people stuff.
Hate pregame.
Yeah, it's old white people stuff.
Right? Apropos Forrest Khan's assessment of the Kendrick Lamar show, I think watching it sort of critically, I admit I'm not familiar with his music, I'm not familiar with his politics, but as far as a show, I thought it was a fairly remarkable choreography and also
the commenter who said she should have had somebody that white people recognized,
like an ASL person.
I did see a very funny Twitter beef played out somewhere where somebody said, "There's not a single white person in this show," and
you get it.
Some black guy says, "Well, hey, DEI is over, man, and you guys just don't dance as well as we do."
I didn't watch the game at all, and I heard about it about Kendrick Lamar, and have seen bits and pieces of it. And what I've seen, it was truly a brilliant show. Yeah, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for you. Mm-hmm. But if you take the time to look at the pieces that they put together, it's amazing. What he did and all these things that he tied together to make a current cultural piece.
The Drake disc
was great. It was
the Drake disc was brilliant.
It was. I didn't know about it until I read. That is some great stuff. I went and read it, oh my god, it was the best. He finished with A minor. That's what it was.
So by the way, Barb, I've already contacted the NFL that my make-a-wish is for a Gothapalooza at the Super Bowl, but I'm sure that that's not going to happen. Allan.
No, I think it's a different art form. Not everybody. If there was a country singer, not everybody would be going, "Yay, country music." It's another form, and I thought it was. I only watched a little bit of it, but I thought it was pretty artful, and it was a slick production.
Okay, Allan, let's go to the last segment.
Wait,
Steve.
Oh, sorry, Steve.
I have only two things to say. I'm probably the only person I'm sure in this group. Number one, I had never heard of Kendrick Lamar. I had no idea who he was. Number two, it's interesting that you brought up Prince, because the last time I saw a halftime show was Prince, in the Rain, which of course is consistent with the last movie I ever saw, being Purple Rain with Prince. So once he passed, I guess I was done. That was it.
And also, I believe the last time you stepped outside, it rained.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, full circle.
full circle. The circle is complete. Okay, Alan.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
All right. I know that there are plenty of candidates, perhaps even more nominees than for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So, let's see. Research this. It's not about Drake. The diss track was just a canvas. The art is way deeper than that.
I'm sure it is, but
It's
I'm
a
not
halftime
ready
show,
for that.
dude. I
Very shallow.
I don't
Like
have
a kiddie
time.
pool.
Okay. Faris, I will go ahead and venture to research this because unlike the rest of these people, you notice there's a main difference. Can you spot it? I'm the academic. Okay, Joel.
Mine is going to be Mitch McConnell, quite frankly, who laid the groundwork for all this. I hold him responsible for really the taking out whatever held democracy together. He completely warped the system for his own need and Republican craziness. He misjudged everything.
Yep.
We are here now because of him. So he is my schmuck of the week and really probably the schmuck of the century. I mean, this is just absurd.
All right.
That's it.
And the century is okay. Barb.
Donald Trump and the steel tariffs, because of the steel tariffs. We're going to see, if this goes through, the state is going to be plunged into chaos. Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, basically the Rust Belt's going to completely rust through. And it's terrifying to think of what's going to happen when we've clawed our way back pretty well. And if it happens, if it's allowed to go through, this state in particular is going to be fucked, and then everything will be for sale. The lakes are going to be for sale. Our national parks are already up for grabs. I'm terrified of how bad the depression will be in the state if this is allowed to happen, and who's going to stop it?
All right, Steve.
My schmuck of the week is Dr. Ralph Abraham. You're probably scratching your head saying, who the hell is he? After RFK Jr. was confirmed, Dr. Ralph Abraham happens to be the Surgeon General of Louisiana. And what did he say? And he had a conference about it. He said that the state of Louisiana will no longer promote mass vaccinations. Now, those of us who are even in the vicinity of my age, think about that. I thought of all of us walking out of Bagley Elementary School to get the polio shot back in, 1956, 55, whatever it was. No more mass vaccinations will be promoted by the state. And the guy is actually on a television interview, basically kind of reveling in it. That made him, it's hard to ignore the higher up people like Donald Trump and whatever, but Dr. Abraham, you've won it for me, and you ought to get rid of the word doctor in front of your name.
A guy who took the Hippocratic Oath,
Right.
First, do no harm.
Do no harm. There you go. Nancy.
Oh, I've got two I've got to mention, but my main schmuck is the mayor of Hamtramck, Amir Ghalib. Yeah, exactly. Who apparently has posted on his social media that he still backs Trump all the way, although he does disagree with him over this Palestinian issue, but he's still Trumper all the way. So for letting your fear and loathing of gay people cloud your judgment toward your own people, or at least people that you're at least somewhat culturally related to, you are my schmuck of the week. But I also want to call out for the opposite, Ben Folds, who was the artistic director of the Kennedy Center and responded to this disgusting takeover of the board and the center itself by the Trump team with 2 words, I quit. And I think it's important for people to do that. We didn't really talk too much about that, but next in December, I think we should start a betting pool over who's going to be wearing the rainbow ribbons medals. And I think it's going to be somebody like Mark Burnett, Lee Greenwood, the Village People, Ted Nugent. When that piece of shit has a
He forgot
around his
pedophile,
scrawny
for
neck,
sure.
the nation's highest artistic honor, then will be really. Yeah.
Actually, Nancy, my prediction is that they're going to replace the rainbow sash with something else, because that's going to be considered to be
that's
too out of bounds for them.
Yeah, maybe something gold.
Barb, I think the mayor's walk-up song now is "The Pretenders." I'll stand by you.
Yeah.
Also, Nancy, I do believe that it was actually the trans community that he was against whom he was inveighing, not the gay community. But anyway, Bill.
Nancy, by the way, I think you need to remember that great line about I wasn't trans, so I didn't worry when they came after the trans.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Wasn't a socialist. Wait until they come after him. My schmuck of the week is Republican Congressman Buddy Carter, who proposed, actually submitted this bill. I read the bill. I'm overwhelmed. HR 1161. It's a bill that would authorize the president to begin the purchase of Greenland. However, Section 2 of the bill requires, within 180 days after the passage of the bill, that all government publications refer, this is true, you can read the bill, refer to Greenland from here on out as red, white, and blue land.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
This guy is an embarrassment to the Congress.
Right.
The fact that a congressman would write such a piece of legislation, which could also be referred to as a piece of shit, is beyond me.
It's trolling. Outrageous. It's like this. They don't actually do any work anymore. They just come up with ways to like poke each other and get on Fox News.
And they think USAID is a fraud.
Yeah,
their paychecks should be taken away.
Right.
If Musk wants to go after anything, he ought to go after the Republicans' paychecks.
Right.
All right, Allan.
I've got two quick ones. One is this guy, Representative Trevor Lee, state lawmaker in Utah, who wants to pass a bill to ban the gay pride flag, but there will you can still fly a Confederate flag or a Nazi flag if it's for historical purposes.
Of course, right.
And the other one is, I just want a real quick passage about Pete Hegseth. This was from the New York Times. It says, in 3 weeks in the job, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has removed portraits of his predecessor from the Pentagon, banned Black History Month celebration, restricted access to learning materials in military schools, touched on views he doesn't like, and attacked the renaming of bases that honored Confederate generals. And speaking to a room filled with African Americans, Asian Americans, Latinos, Americans, both men and women, Hegseth offered a full-throated attack on the military's decades-long effort to diversify. Quote, I think the single dumbest phrase in military history is, our diversity is our strength. I mean, this is a white supremacist who's been, minus the hood and all that stuff, minus the skinhead, whatever it is. These guys are just dressed differently, but.
And now you know why this guy is a blackout drunk. To deal with the howling void where his soul once.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And he'll just get worse. That pathology will get worse.
Oh,
so I've got two schmucks. Vice President J.D. Vance, who's in Germany at the Munich Security Conference, chastising our allies. But the other thing is, when asked if he was going to meet with the host of the conference, that it was in Germany, Chancellor Olaf Scholz, he replied and said, we don't need to see him. He won't be chancellor long, because with the upcoming elections in Germany, there is a chance that the center-right rival to Chancellor Scholz, Friedrich Merz, will win. So hedging their bets on moving to the center-right. But my other schmucks of the week are Republican Pennsylvania Congressman Guy Reschenthaler and Ohio Republican Congressman Max Miller, who have introduced a bill that would allow the 20,000 Americans currently fighting in the IDF to receive similar employment protections and benefits as American National Guardsmen and reservists.
What?
That seemed to be quite a reach for people fighting in a foreign military. But apparently, we are now soldiers without borders and politicians without morals. So yes, all three of them can be tricord schmucks. Anyways, thank you for another wonderful week of discussion of, gosh, quite a lot of things going on in the world. Thank you, Joel Sklar. Thank you, Bill Seikaly. Thank you, Steve Fishman. Thank you, Barb Ingalls. Thank you, Nancy Derringer. And thank you, and with always the last word, Allan Lengel.
Drive home safely.
Have a great week, everybody, and have a great weekend.